Welcome back, everybody, to the Small Business Safari. I am going solo today because Alan has another engagement he's otherwise occupied on. Or, as he says, what are you doing, dude? Are you trying to squeeze me out? I'm like, no way, my man. I got to have you here all the time because now I'm doing this without even having a beer with my buddy. And that's usually why the whole reason I started this podcast was to make sure I could always have beers with Alan. But we won't do that today. We're going to go ahead and we're going to jump in. We've got a great guest, somebody that I came across, and I'm going to go on his podcast later, but we had a chance to talk. And I'm like, dude, what a great story. You've got to come on my podcast and talk and share your great knowledge with all of our small business venture team. So without further ado, let's get going. JR, welcome to the show.
Brother, thank you for having me here. I am grateful. And haha, Alan, you missed this.
He listened to just another one that I did on my own. He goes, I think you're still trying to squeeze me out. No, Alan, I'm not squeezing you out, buddy. But you got to have this whole work balance thing figured out. You can't just go out there closing these multi-million-dollar deals and not make time for our free podcast because he's making exactly $0 on my podcast. But all things will change. So, yeah, JR, I probably can't introduce your story as well as you can. Why don't you tell everybody where the hell you're from and what you're doing?
Well, I am coming to you straight from my chair right now, doing as little as possible. And that's the work-life harmony that I have built. But it took many, many years to get here. And I know that you want to dive into where I came from, where my parents raised me up as a blue-collar worker. I was an electrician, did that for 9 years, jumped into real estate, did that. In fact, still have real estate. I'm still a landlord, but I almost do no work on that business now. And then I built my agency, the Podcast Factory, and I am on a mission to change the world. And it breaks down like this. The right words from the right person at the right time can change your life. And so today, what we're going to do here, and this is kind of, maybe I'm setting the bar too high, but I believe that conversations like the one you and I are about to have, Chris, have a chance to change a listener's life where they get a new perspective, a new idea, a new outlook that changes everything for them. So with that, let's jump in.
Wow, boy, talk about raising that bar. And here I just wanted to have a beer and talk for a little while, but you want to change somebody's life. Let's go do it. But you're right. I have got to start where our roots are because for a lot of the listeners, I don't talk about this, but I started in high school in a machine shop, and I started on the loading dock, and I started working on a small machine, and I was able to work my way up to a screw machine and work in machining while I went through college. And I still go back and say I learned so many lessons in my first job there. Number one, I learned that if you don't show up on time, and that's back to punching the clock, they dock you 30 minutes. You show up on time, you get to start right where you're supposed to start. I also learned that if you sit down while your machine's running and it's all going right, and the guy sees you, your supervisor, guess what you get to do? Extra work. So I learned that you had to stay on top of things, stay on top of your machine, and always stay busy and always stay working. So those are the lessons I learned. And so you did not start out trying to change people's lives. You started out as an electrician, which I would still say you're still changing people's lives. So tell us, what did you learn when you first started getting in the electrician world?
It's funny, as you're talking about that, I'm realizing that even when I wasn't chasing this big mission, I was still trying to light people's lives as an electrician.
Let's go. I love that.
So I realized that. And really, it was a matter of what my parents told me to do, and I did it. And there was so much that I learned in those 9 years, being an apprentice, moving up the ranks, running jobs, planning material. Like for me, all of that work and all of that knowledge went into my brain and is the core of what I do today, because the work I do at the Podcast Factory is about systems, is about planning, is about vision. What do you do when you get to a job site with nothing but dirt? You better have some vision. You better have some planning. You better have some measurements. Like all of that still serves me today. But I would say that the greatest lesson, and the one that I continue to go back to over and over again, is this concept of mentorship and apprenticeship. And in terms of when I came on, I was green. I didn't know anything. They paired me with a journeyman. The journeyman knew everything, and as far as I was concerned, and that journeyman would teach me things, would allow me to put my hands on things, would allow me to mess things up and learn, and my skills would get better and better. And I feel blessed because I have a weird memory where somebody can tell me something, and even if I don't understand it, it goes back to this little file cabinet in the back of my head. And maybe a year later, maybe 10 years later, I'm like, oh, that's what he meant by that. And so I was blessed to have good mentors teaching me, getting my hands dirty, doing the work, learning, growing, and wanting to advance. And so I don't think that changes whether you're doing business, whether you're on the business end of a shovel, or anything in life. I think that was the greatest lesson, was the mentorship, the apprenticeship, and learning.
I love that, because I think that sets your foundation for yourself. Like I said, hey, I learned to show up on time. I learned to stay busy and get to work. But I also learned, because the guy who ran the place, the owner of it, he said, hey, don't go off to college, man. I'll teach you everything. And then you can have one of these one day yourself. Because I told him I wanted to start my own business. Here I was 17. I was going to eventually run my own business. But he gave me the direction. I think a lot of times, if you're open to it, you can get that direction from people, just like you just said. So your mentorship. All right, but you're working with all these electricians and you had a bigger idea. Did that bigger idea just come to you, or did somebody bring that to you and you're like, hey, I think I'm going to try this. I want to get into real estate. I want to be on the other side of this.
I wish I had a big idea. I had no ideas. I did have some resentment towards the work and towards the pay and towards working all day and being up early and doing a lot of thankless work. But I didn't really, I was there and I was present. I was learning. I was always getting the new tool, learning the new technology, whatever it was, learning how to read the print, learning how to lay out the job. In fact, I was one of the youngest guys ever in one of these companies to be charged with doing electrical rooms. And I love doing that work because that was where a lot of thinking went, and core drilling and planning. Like I loved all of that, and I enjoyed it. And it was art to me. And that was one of the, I mean, you had to have a camera back then. We didn't have phone cameras. I'd bring a camera in and take a picture of my electrical room to show my dad all the pipes and everything. Oh, look at all these perfect 90s and offsets and everything. I was into all of that. And there was a point where things changed. And that was when my mom passed away. And I realized that I wasn't happy where I was. And she was young. She was 52 and I was 20, 22, 23, something like that. And there's this thing that I've realized in studying people, studying psychology, studying growth and success, is there's these two mindsets. And one of them is, hey, I'm doing this job. I got the truck. I got the pay. I'm the foreman. This is it. I made it. That kind of pride there. And then there's this other mindset, which is the mindset I choose always, is instead of making the statement, asking the question, is this it? Same words, switched around. Is this it? And that's what I asked myself when my mom passed away. Is this it? Is this all I am meant to be? Because think about it. I'm young and I'm running jobs and I got the truck and I got the blueprint, and older guys are working for me. Good grief. Is this it? What do I have to look forward to? There's nothing else. There's nothing else. I've done it. And so that's what got me thinking about, all right, let's try something else. Jumped into real estate and did well for a while, then lost everything and learned lots in the process. But the same thing, when all that went up and back down, is this it? And life is a continuous asking of the question, is this it?
Yeah, I think I'm going to go back to the first thing. Yeah, I know I just lost my mom a year ago. And it's always too early. I don't care if it's 52, 75, 92, doesn't matter. You only get one mom. And it just sucks when you lose mom, no doubt about it. But for a lot of us, I think the one thing I would take away if you're listening, if you having people working for you or people in your life, that is a flashpoint memory that we all have in our lives. We all know where we were in 9/11. We'll all say we know where we were when our mother died, and we'll remember that. And that is a time you can either choose to move forward, and you move forward with a question. And I love that you said that, because I'm part of a mastermind group where we get together once a month and talk about business issues. And one of the things we do is when you process an issue, the first thing you have to do is get to ask yourself, is this the right question? So you present the question, and then everybody goes around the room, and then you get to decide what the right question is after everybody talks about that. Because answering the right question is the right way to go. And when you ask that question, is this it? And so obviously you had a chance to move forward and move on. So you chose to get into real estate. Did you have somebody that you had a mentor that was helping you get into it? Or did you just say, you know what, dude, I'm just jumping in, rolling up the sleeves and doing what I do?
Brother, I had one paycheck, and back then it was $500 or so. And I had one paycheck because I didn't save any money, and I had real disdain for the work that I was doing, and I burnt the bridge. I just quit, went and signed up for a real estate class, and figured I wanted to invest in real estate, but I knew that it would take a little bit of time. So I figured I'm going to get my real estate license, and that way I can help people buy and sell real estate, look at deals, get into it, get my hands on it, and then eventually start investing. And that's exactly what I did. I got my real estate license, and I went around to a couple brokerages and found the one that was offering the best education. And they happened to offer the worst split, but I didn't care. I wanted to get educated. So I got that license. I went to that brokerage and I started working, taking all their classes. And what happens is people want to help you. Just like I was given a journeyman and I was assigned a journeyman when I was an electrician, there are people around who want to help you if they see something in you, if they see some kind of spark in you. And I had that spark, brother. I was going to get it. And so even though I started with nobody, I made friends at the real estate school or the real estate classes. I made friends in my office. People saw me sharp dressed, young man, go-getter, hitting floor duty whenever I could, getting out to all the open houses. And before I knew it, I had some folks, a team, two ladies that said, hey, why don't you come do a little bit of work with us and we'll help you. And they taught me things, and I would do open houses for them. I would put signs out for them. I would do whatever, because that's what I brought to the relationship. I brought my able body and my ability to help them. And they saw that and they nurtured me and helped me think about deals, transactions, marketing, things I did not know about. I'm going to sell real estate. What does that mean? I don't know.
I hear you.
What's it take? But yeah, I got mentorship, and that's been a recurring theme my entire life, to the point right now. And then I'll give it back to you here, that even at the stage that we are in our business today, I still seek out mentorship. I still will go put work in with people to help them who I think, number one, are worthy of the help, and number two, have other things they can teach me, because these are the skills I have. This is what I bring to the table. So I come with an offering to these folks to help them, and that usually pays dividends.
I love it. So it goes both ways. I think the first thing that I love that you said is that if you are interesting, if you have that spark and you say, hey, I need some help, people are willing to help, especially in the entrepreneurial world and small business world that we're in corporate America, man. When you're in that, you could ask, but there was always an agenda, because the help coming back would come with an agenda. And you always had to watch out for that agenda. And I think a lot of times what I found outside of that, as I'm rumbling, bumbling, stumbling through small business, is that people really do want to help. And I think you said it both ways, and that's what I love doing as well. So in the summer, I run a summer entrepreneurship class for college-aged students. And I found that I was giving back, but you know what I was getting? So much more back. I was giving, but I was getting so much more. I was watching these young people get ideas, bounce ideas off me, have changed the way they study, the way they go about going through college. I tell them, hey, look, you can go through college and check the boxes and run through the motions, or you can really invest in it and keep your options open and take advantage of this awesome time that you're in college. Now, whether you go to college or not, it's the same thing. If you're not learning, you're dying. If you're not growing, you're receding. You've got to keep growing and moving. But I found that giving back, I just got so much back. I mean, I got so fired. I'm getting fired up just thinking about getting this class going again this summer. And here we're doing this in February. I'm going to start marketing it out again and get some more folks. I'd love to have these kids around because the energy is just awesome.
It's so I had a guest on the show last week, Jason Skisick from I think it's the Spear and Clover podcast, and he gave me this concept that I won't take any credit for, but I will share because I think it's an amazing concept, and it goes right with what you're saying is plus equals minus. Plus equals minus. So at all times, we should have a mentor who's above us, ahead of us, plus. At all times, we should have a peer group, equals, that are all going through similar things, helping each other. And at all times, we should have people like those children that you were talking about who we are mentoring. Those are the minus, the people behind us, so we can help them come up. And by having all those pieces in place at all times, you're getting the growth, you're getting the group, and you're getting to bring people up, and it makes you a better business person. And I think it is more fulfilling.
I agree with that 100% on the fulfilling part. It definitely, I wouldn't say it completes me, to use that phrase, but it definitely it gets me a spark. And so I'm jacked up to do this again this summer, and hopefully get a whole new crop of young people in there just to help me get going as well. Let's go back to those real estate days. So you grew it, you were successful again, you showed the spark, and then boom, it's all gone. Stuff out of your control. The great 2008 recession. Talk us through those times. Were they dark times? Did you keep your optimism? Did you keep your hope going? Kind of what was your headspace like when that was happening?
That was the first great failure of my life because it was the first great risk that I took. And dark is an understatement because I wasn't prepared. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know what I was in for. And I was doubting every decision I had ever made. All the money was gone. I lost my house. Dad lost his house. We were in bad shape. I was embarrassed, ashamed, and it was tough. It was tough. And I went through, and it doesn't have to be this way, but because it was the first time, I went through almost 2 years of being down in the dumps, just questioning every move, not knowing what was next. And really, it's about the time where I'm like, should you go back to work? And fortunately for me, I was unemployable, right? I couldn't see myself going back and doing work for someone else after I had built something so cool. And this is where I first learned about the law of borrowed belief. And the person who taught this to me was my beautiful wife, who I refer to as Cupcake. And fortunately, Cupcake had a corporate job, so she was able to float us while I figured out who I was. And fortunately, she supported me during that downtime, which is a testament to picking the right partner. But there was this thing with Cupcake that she looked at me with these big, beautiful brown eyes, and she believed in me. She's like, oh yeah, I know we're gonna do this. I know we got this. I know you're gonna make it happen. And you, huh? And if it weren't for her, I wouldn't have pulled out of it. So I had to borrow her belief in me, put it in my heart, and pretend it was mine so that I could live up to what she saw in me. And this is a recurring thing. And this goes back to mentorships and masterminds and having people around you that have done bigger things, have seen bigger things, have been through it all, because we will hit a cap. We're always going to hit a cap because we have limiting beliefs, whether it was our parents, whether it was school, whether it was clergy. People put these weird ideas in our head that limit us. And so we're going to bump up against those. And when we hit those, we have to have an environment where there's people that say, there is another way. And by the way, why aren't you doing this? And you should be here. And you have to borrow that belief to get up to the next level. So I believe in the law of borrowed belief. And I always put myself in environments where people are doing big things, where I have big mentors doing things I can't even fathom. And then they look at what I'm doing. And they're like, dude, why aren't you doing this or that? And I'm like, you really think I can? They're like, you didn't already? Come on, let's go get it. And so that idea of borrow belief is what helps me break through all kinds of plateaus.
Yeah, that's a great concept. And I think a lot of times people who are listening to the podcast either thinking about jumping out and taking a big risk, and you even said it. My biggest risk was my biggest failure. But it sounds like, and if you listen to this podcast, you can hear it. Man, not only does this guy believe in himself, but he had definitely failed forward. But getting through those times, I talked about it quite a bit in our podcast. I mean, people have asked me, Chris, 14 years in business is going to be 15 in April. Yeah, how'd you get so successful? I'm like, whoa, 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 back up. This success was not an overnight story, my friends. It only took 14 years because there were many a night at 3:30 in the morning, I'd be curled up on the couch going, what have I just done to my family and to myself? And I did. I felt like a failure. And it's hard when you're in those deep, dark spots to get yourself out of it. So at 7 o'clock in the morning, the only way I did it was get my checklist out, go through my checklist and start drumming the beat, go, 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 and just hit it and then make it happen to get out of it, because it is hard, especially when you're down in the dumps. And you had a partner, as they say, there's behind every great man is a better woman, a great woman. In my case, it's a great woman with a big stick behind me, ready to beat me over the head if I don't keep moving. No, I'm kidding. Kind of. But anyway, we digress. Back to that. So 2 years. I mean, I think, when you said that, I think it's really easy to just go, wow, 2 years down the dumps. Really? I'm like, man, that had to be hard.
So that's what happens, right? And this is something that if our listeners can take something away that could change their life, it would be to get away from it and analyze it a little bit. There's this idea of one of my mentors, Mark Evans. He talks about thinking on thoughts on thoughts, thoughts on, and I know there's a name for that, a scientific name, neurocognition or something. I don't know. I'm not a scientist, right? But thoughts on thoughts and coming away from the thoughts, like, and this is the reason why journaling is such an important tool in my life, is that I'm feeling a certain way, I'm writing it down, and then I can come back when I'm feeling better and review those thoughts and think about them and see if they were serving me. So what I learned now is that sometimes we have to remove ourselves from that and let go. And this is part of my faith journey as well, where I'm thinking in terms of surrender and grace. Like as Christians, we are taught forgiveness, grace, and yet we won't forgive ourselves for the mistakes we make. And this is something that I am learning now, and it's serving me quite well, but I didn't have then. But you have to remove yourself from those thoughts, from those feelings, put them down there on paper, let the paper have those feelings, and then come back and review them and objectively ask yourself, are these thoughts serving me? Are these thoughts helping me? And so nowadays, I will hit a setback. I will hit a failure. I will get my butt kicked. But it doesn't take 2 years, okay? It might take 2 minutes. It might take 2 days, 2 weeks, 2 months. It ain't taking 2 years because I have better tools. And I only got those tools by being in the business, by being in the game, by putting in the reps to learn what worked and what didn't and what I could do better.
Love that. And I just got done. I have a strategic offsite meeting I do for my company. I've got 40 employees, but I took 20 of them and we worked for 4 hours, and then we do some team building, which was awesome this time. We got to go out there, cooked like in a Hell's Kitchen kind of scenario. I had 60 minutes to cook as a team and then present our dishes. It was a blast. But in the personal development part, which I actually hosted that one instead of bringing somebody in from the outside based on feedback from my team. So I did some research. And one of the things I found out was, as an adult, we have 12 to 15,000 thoughts a day. Of those 12 to 15,000 thoughts every day, 80% are negative.
Wow.
But here's the good part. 95% of them are repetitive. So if 80% of your thoughts are negative and 95% of your thoughts are repetitive, what are you doing? You're feeding on those thoughts. So you just gave everybody a great piece of advice. Break yourself from that habit. Try journaling, putting it down, put those thoughts on paper and let those thoughts come back. And are they serving you? Guess what? 80% of the time, they're probably not, unless it's a negative thought that moves you to a positive outcome. But how often does that happen? We always run away from that. We've got to go after it. So that was a big thing that I was explaining to everybody. And when I heard 80%, I'm like, well, There's probably a couple days where Chris is probably 99.8% negative. So he's got to figure out a way to break the habit. And that's what you talked about. You just can't let yourself sit there. You got to find a mechanism to get yourself out. You got the tools to get there now and to use those. All right. So you come out of this negative thing. What did you decide to do? Did you get back in real estate? I know you said you have some real estate still today, but is that where you went back? You said, you know what, I was good at it once. The economy's coming back. I'm going to jump back in, or did you go for another pivot?
I got my butt kicked again, right? So what I was doing during those 2 years was not only stewing in my misery, but thinking, man, I don't want that to happen again. I do not want that to happen again. And I thought about what else can I do? How else can I make money that will not let that happen? And that's where I became kind of obsessed with the idea of diversifying. And that's when I started building the business online, which at that time it was a real estate training business, how to get leads, how to do mobile websites, how to get referrals, how to get listings, and selling info products, coaching, and that kind of thing. That's where it started because that's what I knew. And it morphed into what we're doing today because I had a friend who, through that business, told me, bro, you're doing all this copywriting, you're doing all this email marketing and landing pages. Why aren't you doing that for your real estate business?
Oh.
Why? And so I started rebuilding our rental business and our rental portfolio with a video sales letter, with a landing page, with an email sequence, to the point where I have one ad. This is crazy. I haven't actually spoken about this publicly. I shared it with some friends and they loved it though. I have one Google ad, one video, and one email sequence that's brought in 2.4 million in rents over the last 10 years, almost untouched. And that was because of the words that guy told me. Hey, why don't you turn this around on your business? And I was like, duh. And so earlier when I told you, hey, I don't really work in the real estate business much anymore because I have an automated system that does all the marketing, does all that. All I have to do is meet people, and I have a team who runs operations. So I meet people once in a while, and I don't do anything else with that business, and it's still bringing in rents to this day. So yeah, we rebuilt that business, and then we went through iterations to where we ended up at the podcast factory. But the podcast factory started from that guy telling me, dude, don't be a dumbass. Like, turn this around on your business. And those words changed my life. And so that's what I'm doing today, is working to help change more lives through these sorts of conversations.
I love that. I think that I'm going to put that on a t-shirt. Dude, don't be a dumbass. I love. All right. So let's talk about the podcast factory. What do you do? How do you help people? Tell us a little bit more about what it does.
Yeah, man. So I'm like, I've questioned myself many times. Is this it? And I wasn't satisfied with helping real estate agents. I mean, it was fun, and I know that having a house is a big deal, but it didn't light me up. And what has been a constant light in my life is the mentorships, the friendships, the coaching that I get from the people I work with. And that's how the podcast factory started. My friend, his name's Darren Persinger. He was the first person I ever did a podcast with way back on July 4th, 2013. We launched our first podcast together. And it was just to get his message into more ears because he had helped me so much. And then I had other guys whom helped me, like the guy that taught me email marketing, Ben Settle. I'm like, dude, we got to get you on a podcast. We got to share this. You're changing my world. We're going to change more worlds. And that mission has stuck with me all of this time, to the point where I get out of bed because of that. Right words, right person, right time can change a life. So it's not just the conversation that you and I are having. It's not just the conversations or the leadership I give to my team or our clients, but the messages that they are sharing that are going out to listeners, bringing light to their lives, giving them new perspective and motivating them to have something more. And so I get up every day thinking, I get to do this. I get to change lives. Meanwhile, in high school, they thought I'd never amount to anything. And here I am today, doctors, lawyers, accountants, all these financial advisors, all coming to me for advice. How do we change lives? This is how you do it. We're going to connect the pieces. We're going to put together the right pieces of content, the right messages to get people to get up off their butts and change their lives.
Look at that, man. Love that. Whew, you're preaching on. I'm so digging this stuff. So, in changing lives and doing that, the podcast factory, you go out and you get other people to get their voices out there to help people in this world. What about the people who say, yeah, man, there's plenty of podcasts out there. You don't need to do that. It doesn't help. There's just too many. How about those people who say that?
I love them. Mwah.
Yes.
Love you. Give you a big hug and kiss. I agree. There are a lot of, and in fact, let's take it up a level. Any dummy with a smartphone can have a podcast. It doesn't take any brains to hit record and put it out there. And that's great. That's the beauty of it all, because there's so much crap out there. that's what it comes down to. What we're looking at is, number one, as you can tell, I'm mission driven. So when I talk to somebody, I'm vetting them. Is the work you're doing capable of changing a life? Can I become a fan of your work so that I can help you power up more people? Because if I can't, I'm not going to work with you. Like a guy came to me a couple weeks ago running a gambling website. I'm like, bro, I'm not your guy. Like, sorry about your luck. Now, last week I had a guy who's doing microdosing. And I would think maybe that's terrible, right? Microdosing on mushrooms, but he's trying to change people's perspective, unlock them from the societal bondage that they have, free their minds so that they know that they can accomplish more. And I'm like, okay, you sold me. I like the idea, because I get that through a different way. I get that through my Bible. But you are doing something that's going to make a difference to people, and I'm going to help you get that message out there. So yeah, we first look at who we're working with, what they want to accomplish, and then we help them build a platform to accomplish that. So what's your message? Who are you talking to? Number one. Number three in the process is, what do you want them to do? Because this is a big mistake that most people getting into podcasts make is, hey, I just want people to listen. That ain't enough. Like, if you just want people to listen, I can't help you. But if you want people to listen so that you change their perspective and they want to get on your calendar and book a call and work with you, woo-wee, ain't no one better than us at that, right? So there's the part three right there. So who are we talking to? What do we want them to do? Because a podcast needs to do something for you to keep you interested. Then number two, in the middle, the sandwich, we call this the content ball. What are the things you need to say to get these people to take the action you want them to take? That's when you start planning out your content. So we help develop the messaging, we help get it everywhere, build all the infrastructure, and we help, most importantly, make that impact in that listener's life that's going to lead them back to you.
Solid, man. Whew, that's good stuff. And you're right. If you took them both at face value, a gambling website, a microdosing, or gambling and microdosing together, you'd be like, well, those are two vices that we really don't want to promote. But if you got a different mission and you got something else you're really trying to do, so obviously you don't always want to just judge a book by its cover, as they say. You want to listen to what they're trying to do and what they're accomplishing. Wow, that's pretty powerful, because you're right. On the surface, I would have said no to both.
No to both, right?
Yeah. Right. Yeah. No, thank you, man. How to get yourself hammered and wake up the next morning? I don't think so. That's not microdosing. I know that, but hey, I'm just coming up with another one. I'm just spitballing ideas here, man. Love it. So, in your typical week, now that you diversified, you've got rents coming in, you do the podcast factory, you do some coaching as well, obviously. How's your week break down percentage wise? I mean, where are you spending more of your time?
Well, this is a huge mistake I made last year, and now we can laugh at it, but it wasn't funny when we were going through it. I don't know that I've ever shared this other than in our meeting, but last year we had some things that didn't go well. It was a rough year, in fact. And what we had was our cost of goods went up, I think 30%. Cost of goods went up. And then our client roster went down. So now we're losing incoming money, and the money that's coming in is being spent on, and you know how that works in business. Now we got that big stretch right there. So it was a big hit. And I was doing a lot of interviews for the Results Leader podcast, and I wanted to take July off. And we were looking at these things that were going on, and we were struggling with it. And we were questioning whether or not taking time off was a good idea. Now, We had the condo already by the beach, kids off from school. We're location independent. And I made the choice to double down on appointments. So from July, instead of taking that month off, I said, that's irresponsible. Book up my calendar. And they did. They booked up my calendar too. Every day I wake up and look at the calendar and 13 calls, 15 calls this week. They did. They did. They booked up my calendar. And you know what happened? Less money, less money, less money. I made the wrong move. The move was to take that month off, get my head clear, and figure out what is really going to move the dial. So this is one of those lessons that I wish I didn't have to learn that way again. Right?
Why does it always cost me so much money to learn a damn lesson?
But now, and the reason I'm saying that is because now we're clearing the decks and I have less time. So now I'm doing a couple pet projects that I want to do. I get to talk to you, but now maybe 6 hours booked out on the calendar this week, and that's it. And so it's getting better. And what is happening, number one, business ticked up in a big way. And everybody's like, what just happened? Yeah, I'm working less, people. I'm getting replenished and I can come back and serve you better. But now I'm serving my team better. So I'm popping in on the team calls and coaching them. I just had a call with one of my team members just now, gave him an aha, like coaching our clients better now, like crystal clear. Here's what we need to do. Step 1, 2, and 3. And by the way, you're going to hit this roadblock later. So let's plan for that now. And being a better dad, because I'm not stressed, not looking at that calendar, which, dude, I wished for that calendar for so many years. And I spent so much on consulting to have a calendar booked up. And when I got it, I hated it.
Wow.
And I learned now, baby, blank space, give it to me.
I love that. Yeah. So I wrote a book called From the Zoo to the Wild. One of the things I put in there is a different perspective, same thought. And that is that the vanity line is, hey man, this is how much I grossed last year. And here's the sanity line. This is how much I made. And last year, same thing happened to me. My vanity line looks awesome. I'm over 5 million now. Woohoo! My sanity line, oh boy, that wasn't good. What happened? And so, again, the podcast was I had my accountability group saying maybe you're just doing too much other stuff. You need to be focused on that. Maybe a few less vacations. They're a tough guy. People love to make fun of me about that. But really, what it was I didn't have the right people and I didn't have the right metrics in place. And so I made that change consistently now since September. And so the second half of the year basically saved my bacon. Because of what you just said. Our cost of goods went up too, because I'm in the home repair business and man, they were going up all over the place and we were not reacting and staying with them. I love it when people say, oh, I know my numbers inside and out. I'm like, dude, there's no way I could know my numbers inside and out when I was getting weekly price increases on doors. I would sell a door on a Friday, go place the order on a Wednesday, and the guy says, hey man, it's gonna be 50 more bucks. And that might not sound like a lot to you, but that's a lot of the margin you have on materials. And you're like, oh, that's just 50 bucks came out of my pocket. And that happened over and over and over. And you pick your head up at the end of the year and go, wow. So that's why you've got to always be able to take a little less time instead of going after all those activities and filling up the bucket. Like you said, man, I had my vanity line looked awesome. Look at all these calls I'm booking. Look at all this opportunity. You look at the end of the year and you go, why does it always cost me so much damn money to learn a lesson? And that's what I can't stand, but it does. That's great that you're doing that stuff. And you're putting your focus on your people too. And that's just another thing. We keep talking about that over and over. The numbers are important, but the people are even more important. I mean, I know this whole craze of AI and everything else that's coming out. As soon as they have robots that can work on houses, I'm all in. But right now I need people. And people got to work on houses because I need them as carpenters, as drywalls, project managers, tilers. Got to have it to grow them, and I got to have the people around me who can help run those guys as well. So that's a key lesson. So what's next for you, man? What are you planning next?
I'm pretty fortunate in that I've had a couple mentors challenge me to think forward, 10 years into the future. Think about who you want to be, what you're doing, what kind of impact you're making. And I've got an envelope, in fact, since I did that exercise, and it's locked up in my safe so that I can look at it in like 9 years. There's a couple things that have really driven me. Number one is generosity. And that guy that I told you about earlier, Mark Evans, the making of the DM show, good friend, good mentor, has this saying, you can't outgive the world. And generosity is incredibly important to me. And I want to practice more and more philanthropy. And I just got the numbers back. I'm not going to brag or anything here, but even in that bad year, I'm so proud of this, where things weren't looking great. I ramped up my giving last year. And when I saw what we gave, I was so stoked to know that I was being challenged. And I think I was being challenged by the Lord to see if I was worthy. Like, okay, you want to be generous? How about I take all this away and you show me how generous you want to be? Well, Lord, I was more generous than I've ever been. Thank you for the test. And so I'm working on that, number one. And that also comes in the form of the work that we're doing here. Like, I want to be generous in sharing stories and sharing experiences and sharing the platform, like having you come over and be with me, because I know that we are going to change lives with one word, right person, right time, changes a life. The other part that I'm looking at, and this is why we're really focused on growth, not just for us, but for all our clients, is I want to be impacting 10 million lives a year through this work. And I know I can't do that alone. That's why I'm very selective about the clients who we work with, because I want to know that they can reach a big audience, and we can help them reach that big audience, and we can change their lives. So I'm working towards that, where it sounds crazy when I say it, but to have like 10 million lives changed would be incredible. And that's what I was put on this earth for. And so if you hear passion in my voice, if you hear love, it's because of that mission. So that's what's coming next for me.
God, I love that stuff, man. It reminds me of that quote from Bill Gates that says that we often overestimate what we can achieve in 1 year, but underestimate what you can achieve in 10. And I think that 10-year view is just that's mind blowing. And that's, how old are your kids now?
I have one child and he is 8.5.
8.5. Oh, fun times. Mine are 24 and 21. And I just, one of my buddies is out getting ready to coach spring baseball for his 9-year-old. And I said, Ben, dude, those are some of the best times in my life. I loved that I'd started my business. I used to be Mr. Third Inning. I'd never even show up, never make it, going to coaching not only baseball, but softball for my daughter and my son. And man, I tell you, those are some of the best times. Now, they're 24 and 21, and I do that 10-year plan now. I'm like, well, I guess it's a little bit about me and my wife and what we're going to do and how we're going to move forward and do these next 10 years. And, what's in store for me and what do I want to do? And I love that thought about impacting 10 million lives. Mind blowing for me, to be honest with you. I felt a little small when you were saying that. I was like,
Scary.
I don't even know if I can impact 10, much less the 40 I got working for me. I love it.
Yeah.
Well, man, I've enjoyed our conversation. I look forward to picking up again with you, but before I let you leave, I've got to ask my favorite questions. So one question Alan asked me to start asking everybody is, what is a good book that you'd recommend to everybody?
All right. So I'm going to butcher the name. I actually don't know the title of the book, but you're going to know the person when I talk about it. And here's what I figured out. Dude, I've read up to 100 books in a year. Last year, I think I might have only read 60, 70 books between Audible, between print books, between Kindle. And what I have found to be the most profound kind of book that I love is a biography. Like, you can read all the business books you want. You can read all the self-help, but I want to hear about what really happened in your life. And one that I thought would be fun to bring to the show that comes right out of left field. Pick up a copy of Gene Simmons' biography. Like,
oh, get out of here.
Dude, it was just so interesting to hear how he was an entrepreneur, how he built KISS, how he thought about marketing, how he thought about merchandising, how he thought about IP and trademarks, and how he built. And I say he because he was really leading it. And some of the band members weren't that great. And that's why he ended up so successful. And I think it's a great lesson in thinking about, remember I told you the mistake I made? Oh, actually, we didn't talk about it. One of the mistakes I made recently was multiple streams of income. I had two, I added two more. And that was part of why last year was so bad, because I was messing around in other places. the way that Gene does it is the right way to do it. The right way to do multiple streams of income is how much income can we get out of the work we're already doing? How much value can we pull out of this? And so there are some wonderful lessons in that book if you look for them.
You know what? You got it. I'm putting that on my list because I agree with you. I think biographies tell you more about what people were thinking and how they were thinking about it. It's just, yeah, it's mine. But you know, the Gene Simmons thing, I actually guilty pleasure watched his reality show with him and his wife, and you could see that, man, this guy, he was not just some dumb entertainer, man. He had a purpose to everything he was doing, and purpose in life too. But he of course, what do you know about Gene Simmons? It was just all his conquest, with women. That's at least what I thought. And then of
That
course,
was his driving purpose in the beginning.
I love that. That's good. All right, now let's jump to my favorite three questions. So, well, give us the favorite feature of your house, because I'm in the home building industry and I love that home renovations. What's the favorite feature of your house?
The favorite feature of the house is because we live in a condo. It's 2-bedroom, 2.5 bath. And the favorite feature is my own half bath there, which is my office.
There we go. Hey, you can get a lot done in that bathroom. I like that. Hey, no time for breaks. I just keep rolling with them. All right, number two. When you're out there in the customer service world, because we are customer service freaks here, what is a customer service pet peeve of yours?
Man, I just had this discussion with one of our team members, and it's the lack of communication. And one of the things that we like to do here is we want to respond to client questions. We say 12 hours, ideally 6 hours, but really 3 hours max, because we're a team all around the world. So there's no reason why we shouldn't be able to get to it, but quicker is better. And I don't like it when people don't communicate with me. So that's why I try to keep that top of mind for us.
So key, and especially in the home services business. Here in Atlanta, we have the big AM station, like everybody has their AM FM now. But they did a study of homeowners, 800 homeowners, our target market, and they had them rank. When working with a home service company, what are your four biggest things? Number one was quality, of course. Two, it was communication. We expect that you will text or email us 30 minutes ahead of your appointment, and when you get there, you're going to tell us what you're going to do. Because again, back to those 12 to 15,000 thoughts every day. If they're negative and you're not getting communicated to, where does everybody go? That deep, dark place, man. I know it. And guilty. I do it myself. So I agree with you. Communication. One of the things that was interesting in that study is people are realistic, right? But here in Atlanta, when it's hot and your HVAC or your water heater's out, what percentage of people expect them there under 4 hours?
Wow. Everyone.
55% expect people there within 4 hours. But don't worry, we're realistic. I'm like, woo, how about that? All right, number three, give us a DIY nightmare story.
DIY. You know what was my DIY nightmare story? When I got into real estate and I was investing in the houses, I was putting on my tools and working on them instead of being the businessman. And I would never do that again. I don't put on tools now. And I know that my role is to do the business and let the contractors do what they're great at.
I love that. Know your lane. Stay in your lane. Slow your roll. That's what Travis Kelce just said in the epic answer to Kansas City beating the Bengals. But that was pretty good. Jeremy, I really enjoyed this. How can we find you? We've been talking about the podcast factory, but how can everybody find you out there? We'll put it all in the show notes as well.
Yeah, brother. So I would say that anyone who's looking for encouragement, enlightenment, some positivity, you can go to thepodcastfactory.com and click around to find Client Showcase. And we have, I don't know, maybe 50, 80 shows on there with all great hosts who are covering all different areas of life that can help you. And the other thing is, if you've got a message, if you've got a mission, and you know you need to get it out there, same place, thepodcastfactory.com. Take a look at our services, book a call, and I'll tell you how it works.
Well, man, this has been dynamite. And as you open this up, really cool. Perhaps we got the right person here in the right message at the right time. And if we did today, make it a great day, everybody. Go out there, keep going up that mountaintop of success, and hopefully we changed your life today. Let's go out there and make it happen.
Get it.